Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Spurs Up Show, the best Gamecocks podcast on the internet. Today is Thursday, September the 2nd, 2021. Today's show, I break down this weekend's game as the Gamecocks take on the Eastern Illinois Panthers in Shane Beamer's debut as South Carolina head coach as the 2021 football season gets underway. Guys, I break down everything, including a full breakdown of the Eastern Illinois Panthers. Also, we'll talk top storylines, key matchups to watch, as well as keys to the game as the Shane Beamer era gets underway Saturday night at Williams-Brice Stadium. Guys, also, we have listener questions and a fantastic conversation. Guys, a great interview. I know the term and the phrase legendary gets thrown around very loosely, but this is a legendary conversation. As former Gamecocks defensive line coach and friend of the show, Brad Lawing joined me actually at Tin Roof last week. And what a conversation it was, guys. By popular demand, we have now distributed the conversation and the interview on the podcast here on these airwaves. So again, a fantastic conversation with Brad Lawing, one of the best to ever do it in Columbia. Guys, we got a packed show here on a Thursday, and it's all brought to you by our friends over at Upstate Movers Group. Guys, Upstate Movers Group, superior moving service. They bring care and attention the companies can't offer because they're just too busy maintaining trucks and profiting off of them instead of focusing on service. Guys, service what separates Upstate Movers Group from the competition. They're not a trucking company. They're a moving services company, and they're also employee-owned co-op. Their movers are paid twice the industry average, and everyone on the crew is invested in your success. They have dedicated professional crew members, and they also offer black glove service. They offer end-to-end packing services, custom crating and packaging for special items, and cleaning services as well. They're founded by Greenville natives and University of South Carolina alumni, guys, so a Gamecock-owned small business. They also offer 20 years of project management moving experience, and they can offer logistics and solutions that traditional moving companies simply do not have the skills for. Guys, whether in the upstate or across the state of South Carolina, if you have any moving needs in 2021, be sure to check out our friends over at Upstate Movers Group. You can find them on social media at Upstate Movers Group. Or, of course, if you have any other questions, go to their website, upstatemoversgroup.com. That's upstatemoversgroup.com. Be sure to check them out and tell them Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent you. Let's get it. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, happy Thursday. Hope you're all doing well. I'm Chris Phillips, host of the Spurs Up Show. As always, appreciate you guys tuning in. I am fired up here on a Thursday because, folks, officially today, this Thursday, September the 2nd, 2021, is officially the first game day preview show of the 2021 football season, guys, as we break down and preview the Gamecocks game this Saturday, 7 o'clock at Williams-Brice Stadium as the Shane Beamer era officially gets underway. Folks, just 2 days away until kickoff. I'm going to appreciate you all tuning in. Hope this finds you well wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, whether you're on the commute, you're in the office, you're on the job, you got the day off, you're in class, whatever you're doing, whatever it may be, guys. Thank you again so much for the continued love and support, man. Appreciate you all. It's crazy that the preseason is winding down, and we're getting to the point where we're going from counting the days to counting the hours to getting to counting down the minutes until toe meets leather at Williams-Brice Stadium this Saturday, guys. But again, appreciate your continued love and support, man. You guys continue to rock and roll with the content, everything we do. You guys have supported all throughout the preseason, all since we started counting down 100 days to kickoff. And now, folks, it's almost here. It's almost here. We're almost going to get to enjoy. We almost have gotten to the point we're going to enjoy the fruits of our labors and enjoy kickoff and enjoy Carolina football together and this new era under head coach Shane Beamer. It feels so good to say that, guys. We got a packed show. Like I said, we are breaking down this weekend's game, guys. Like I told you all, every single Thursday will be our full game preview show for the game the upcoming weekend. Before we get into that, though, guys, just a couple of quick reminders. We've had a ton of events going down this week. And again, I appreciate your love and support, those who have showed up, those who have showed out, those who have continued to engage and ask questions and just support everything we're doing with the Spurs Up Show. But I do want to remind you, I got a lot of stuff upcoming this weekend. First things first, tomorrow night at Hall's Chop House, downtown Columbia, off Main Street, across the street from the State House. My good friend Cox by 90 and I will be out there. A very similar setup to a couple of weeks ago when he and I were at Rita's on Folly Beach. We'll be down there 5 to 7, 5 to 6. We'll do a little bit of a meet and greet, if you will, take questions from you guys. And then 6 to 7, we will be live doing a live kickoff show live from Hall's Chop House right outside on the patio. And if you cannot be there, we will be streaming it live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. You guys know the drill. I want to point that out also because we have about 15 or 20 reserve seats at Hall's on Friday night, tomorrow night, guys. If you are attending, if you can make it, I want to make sure you guys have a table reserved. Please shoot me a DM. Please let me know, or shoot Cox by 90 a DM. Get in contact with one of us. We want to make sure that we put your names down so we can make sure we reserve that seating for you. Going to be a fantastic night, guys. Going to be a great time. Going to have some special guests stop by. And also, we have got one hell of a giveaway for tomorrow night, guys. We're giving away a $200 Hall's gift card that can be used at any of their locations and any of the other places that they own, by the way, including Rita's. We're also giving away a piece from my good buddy at Apex Art and Design, the DJ Swearinger piece. We're also giving away other merch, other pieces. Guys, it's going to be the biggest, baddest giveaway we have ever done. So again, that's Hall's Chop House tomorrow night downtown across the street from the State House, official kickoff show for the Gamecocks game against EIU. Be sure to come out to that. I'm going to appreciate my guy Cox by 90 having me out there. Also, guys, for Saturday, for game day, just a quick reminder of what's going down. The TSUS tailgate will be taking place at Seawells. Seawells spots 93 to 96. Been talking to my buddies. They want to get out there super early. I mean, I think they might be out there by 11, but I can tell you this, we'll be out there all day long. I'll probably plan on getting out there around noon or so. And then 3 to 4, we've got our official game day show, pregame game day show, if you will, live from Jay's Corner, 3 to 4. So again, would love to have you guys swing by, come on out to that, drink a cold beer. Let's talk Gamecocks, and let's have one hell of a time as we continue to count down the minutes, the seconds, if you will, until toe meets leather at Williams-Brice Stadium and the Shane Beamer era gets underway. And on that note, folks, let's go ahead and dive into it. We're talking Eastern Illinois on this show, guys. And by the way, a quick reminder before we get going, I will not be giving a prediction on this show today. That will be on Fridays. On the Friday podcast, I will officially lock in my predictions for each and every single game. So tomorrow's podcast, I'll talk everything prediction for the game. But on this show, we are breaking down EIU, and we are breaking down this game as a whole. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it again, guys. Gamecocks, Eastern Illinois, 7 o'clock kickoff at Williams-Brice Stadium, Saturday night, under the lights. If you cannot be there, SEC Network Plus and ESPN Plus. And I know there's been a lot of people on social media posting about how to watch it and what you have to do, guys. Go ask them, go follow them. It's SEC Network Plus and ESPN Plus. If you have those channels and you have a login, you should be good to go, but you definitely want to make sure before kickoff hits. So again, 7 o'clock kickoff, SEC Network Plus and ESPN Plus. Guys, the Gamecocks are a 42.5-point favorite in this ball game via oddshark.com. In the series history, of course, guys, this is the first meeting between the two schools. Guys, talking Eastern Illinois specifically, they are of the Ohio Valley Conference. Their head coach is Adam Cushing. They've actually already played a game this year. As many of you know, they are 0-1 overall, losing their first game to Indiana State by a score of 26-21. And they did have a spring season, by the way. They went 1-5 in their spring season. So again, 0-1 right now, though. They will enter this game looking to get back to 500 in the 2021 football season. Guys, let's move into top storylines. And of course, the top storyline, the storyline of all storylines for this game at Willie B. The Shane Beamer era officially begins. The Shane Beamer era gets going officially Saturday night on the field. We will get our first true look at South Carolina football under the guidance of Shane Beamer. And guys, again, it's been fun, right? The honeymoon phase, everything in the preseason, all the good feelings and the good vibes and talking season and winning on the talking tour and all that. But this is where you truly begin to build the culture of your program between the white lines at Williams-Brice Stadium under the lights. And I am so intrigued and so interested. Again, I said this about the spring game, but even more so now, of course, to see what South Carolina football, what does game day look like with Shane Beamer as head coach. And with a new era, with a new head coach, you've also got new coordinators. You've got new assistants. You've got new position coaches. And hey, none of these guys have coached at the Power 5 level in regards to your coordinators. Marcus Satterfield, it's his first game at South Carolina. Clayton White, his first game at South Carolina. So what do those guys look like? It's funny, guys. Again, we've talked all preseason. What type of coach is Shane Beamer going to be? What type of coach is Marcus Satterfield going to be? Are they going to be, what type of coach is Clayton White going to be? Are they going to be more aggressive? Are they going to be conservative? Are they going to be this? They're going to be that. And I've seen people trying to make guesses and, I think coach will do this. I think coach will do that. It's like, guys, we don't know. We don't know because, hey, this is going to be the first time for Shane Beamer too. This is going to be the first time for, him ever being a head coach and him ever going through game day in this position. Of course, we know, guys, the emotions are going to be running extremely high. It's going to be a packed out crowd, the atmosphere, the environment. I know many of you are going to be in the building and you're going to be very, very excited for kickoff, but what a special night it sets up to be. Again, many of you have asked me, Chris, if you could only go to one game this year, just one, what game would you go to? And I say the first one. No doubt. And again, I know it's not a high profile matchup in regards to the opponent you're playing and what's on the line, et cetera, but I truly do believe with the Shane Beamer era beginning, Saturday night has the potential to be very, very, very special. And it's one of those nights that it's only going to happen once, right? The first game of the Shane Beamer era is only going to happen once. It's only going to happen once. And I just think I look at Saturday night as really a celebration of a new era beginning for South Carolina football. And, I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to compare and contrast, this preseason or this season opener, it feels like this one or it feels like that one or it feels like that one. It's just kind of unique in its own way. I think Gamecock fans are just so excited to begin a new era, to have hope again, to have optimism again, and you're going to see that really come to a head and culminate on Saturday night, I think, with the excitement and the crowd and the vibe around game day. And then, of course, Shane Beamer leading his football team onto the field, out of the tunnel. It's going to be special. It's going to be a really, really cool time. And then again, like I said, guys, the Shane Beamer era beginning at South Carolina, officially on the field Saturday night. It's going to be really, really, really cool. Guys, another top storyline, of course, and it kind of goes in line with the Shane Beamer era beginning. How about Williams-Brice Stadium and tailgating being back to full capacity? Guys, we are back. We are back from the season that was a season ago and how hectic. And you just think, guys, a year ago to the date, like I've told you guys many times, how can you not have perspective after what we went through last year and what we've gone through in the last year and a half or so with all the uncertainty and all the turmoil and all the drama and all the adversity and just not knowing what was going to happen, what type of season we're going to have. Were we going to have to, wear masks to games, or were we going to have full capacity, or was tailgating going to be normal? Were we going to have Gamecock walk? Were we going to have all the traditions we all know and love? We had no idea. So the fact we are getting to go to a game, and I told you guys this before, it's crazy. We had football season last year, right? But in some ways, it really didn't feel like we did. I thought back to last year, and it's like, it almost feels like it's been like 2 years since football season. Because, we got it last year. We got games on the field, and, I got to make content and do podcasts and go to a couple games even. but it just wasn't the same. It felt empty to a degree, especially, guys, speaking of the tailgating side of things. I remember specifically the first game against Tennessee. My buddies were out there, and I walked out there to the tailgate lot or the tailgates or whatever. I walked out, then I was like, this just feels strange. It felt ominous. It didn't feel right. And so to get that back, truly, man, it feels like it's been so long. I mean, there's many of you, I'm sure, tuned in that you guys haven't even been to a sporting event since COVID hit. So for people, many Gamecock fans who missed out on the opportunity a season ago to go to the stadium and cheer on their team, and for many fans, that was the first season of Carolina football they had ever missed. Again, this is going to be, like I said, a really, really, really special night, and I just cannot wait to see the scene around Columbia as a whole, but the tailgates, Seawells, of course, where we're going to be tailgating, Gamecock Park, the fairgrounds, everywhere. And then, of course, the scene inside Willie B. I mean, it's setting up to be probably the most raucous FCS environment, the most raucous SEC versus FCS team environment you have ever seen. Again, will it be sold out? I don't know, but it's going to be a really, really special night. And I know fans have been itching for so long to get back in the stadium, and that Gamecock fans are going to show out, both in the stadium and at the tailgate, for this one on Saturday. All right, let's talk more on the field, guys. Again, another top storyline for me. We've been talking about it the last couple of days, but of course, you got to start with the quarterback and Zeb Nolan getting the nod under center. What does Zeb give you? And I'll be curious to see this. How much do they really ask Zeb to do? What is the game plan in regards to run versus pass? Because you look at it this way. I mean, I think we all agree this is a game South Carolina most certainly should win. They should have their way with the IU. They should be able to play a lot of guys. I look at this game as, you're going to be able to kind of do whatever you want offensively. I truly believe that. I think you're going to be able to run the football at will. I think if you do really want to pass, I think you can. How much, though, do they ask Zeb to do? Because you've heard Shane Beamer, you've heard Marcus Satterfield say, we're not asking him to go win the Heisman. We're not asking him to go win the SEC. We are asking him to run the offense. So what does running the offense look like, I guess? Again, Marcus Satterfield, we really don't have any idea what type of offense he's going to run. And we've said it all preseason, right? We feel really good that this is going to be a staff that plays to their strengths and doesn't try to put a square peg in a round hole, and they're going to do exactly what's necessary to score points and make big plays and get the job done. Well, what does that look like under Marcus Satterfield? Again, guys, like I told you, going in this first game, the quarterback conversation and the whole Zeb Nolan versus Jason Brown versus Colton Gauthier, which of course culminated with Zeb Nolan being named starter on Tuesday and social media reacting accordingly. But it's been a fun storyline. It's been something fun, especially for a content creator like myself to follow and to break down, and the beauties and the banter, right? It's been fun, but realistically, we know Luke Doty's this team's starting quarterback. Luke Doty's QB1. He will be back next week and will reassume his duties as the starting quarterback. But you're going to have to throw at some point, you'd think, right? I mean, you want to use this game against EIU to build some confidence, I would say, in the passing game. I mean, there's no question, because the last thing you want to do is, you don't just want to run the ball 80 times and you throw 5 passes and then you go into ECU. And you're not going to really be able to draw conclusions from this game anyways. But certainly you feel like if you can't make big plays in the passing game against EIU, well, what in the world is that going to mean for the rest of your season? So Zeb Nolan, specifically him at the quarterback position, what do they ask him to do? And I think we're going to see, guys, multiple quarterbacks play. I think you're going to see Zeb Nolan. I think you're going to see Jason Brown. I think you're going to see Colton Gauthier. You might even see Connor Jordan, depending on how the game goes. But out of the gates, what does quote-unquote running the offense look like? And just exactly what do they ask Zeb Nolan to do outside of handing the football off to your great running backs that he has behind him? Speaking of those great running backs, guys, in my next top storyline, speaking of those backs, and I think you ask Carolina fans everywhere, who's the one guy you're most looking forward to seeing on Saturday against Eastern Illinois? Who is the guy you cannot wait to watch? One name comes up more than others, and that is the once 5-star recruit, the highly touted Marshawn Lloyd making his South Carolina debut, guys. And I can tell you this, I am fired up. I'm ecstatic to watch Marshawn Lloyd. After last year going down with the injury, I thought he was going to be the key piece, really, of the South Carolina offense. And Kevin Harris did his thing and had the season he had. And certainly Kevin Harris is going to be, a huge part of your offense yet again. And he should be able to play, I believe. I think that's what Beamer said. He should be able to go, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how much they play him. But either way, Kevin Harris is going to be a huge part of your offense. But I think when you talk to Gamecock fans, there's just a little bit of a different glimmer in their eye when they speak on this guy. When they talk Marshawn Lloyd and his potential. Again, when you come into South Carolina, or you go into any school with the type of recognition and the type of accolades and the type of hype and the type of excitement. And we're talking about a guy that was the highest rated running back prospect to step foot on campus since Marcus Lattimore did it in Columbia, South Carolina. So Marshawn Lloyd, what does he have up his sleeve for his South Carolina debut? I think certainly, again, we all feel like this is a game where he should be able to have some success. We've heard great things about his explosiveness and what he's done in fall camp. And I know I speak for all of you when I say I cannot wait to see that on full display Saturday night at Williams-Brice Stadium. I think, you hear him talk, and he's very confident. He said this before. I think there will be moments he's going to make Gamecock fans go, wow. So, we've been hearing about this guy for so long and the hype and what is he going to bring to the table and just how good can he be? Can he be one of the all-time greats at South Carolina? And for especially the journey he's been on, overcoming the adversity, dealing with the injury, going through the rehab, and now we finally get to see it play out on the field. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Sticking on the offense, another top storyline for me, guys. Like I said, you're not going to be able to draw conclusions necessarily from a game like this. I mean, if you go win by 70, for example, that's great and all. It'll be a fun night. It'll be awesome for fans. But that doesn't mean you're going to go win 10 games, right? That transitive property does not equate, if you will. But you do need to use a game like this, in my opinion, to start to establish, okay, who are the guys and who are our dudes? Who are our dudes we can depend on weekly to make big plays for us and step up and be consistent contributors? And specifically, the position unit, we've been talking position unit previews and stuff like that. The position unit that is one of, if not arguably the greatest question mark on this football team entering this season, is the wide receiver position. And of course, on Tuesday, the depth chart was released. We talked all about that on yesterday's show. But your starting receivers look like this: Jalen Brooks, Josh Vann, and Dakereon Joyner. One of the things I'm going to be watching for very closely Saturday night, and I'm most intrigued to see, you have those guys, right? Out of those three or anyone else on the roster, does anyone just start to emerge themselves as the number one option at wide receiver? Because again, like I said, you're not drawing conclusions from Saturday night. Just because a guy goes out that has a great game on the outside, that doesn't mean he's going to be the next Alshon Jeffrey or Sidney Rice. But you can tell, right, when you can tell the difference between the number one option and the number three or the number four or the number five, right? Is there a guy that sort of we see on Saturday night on the outside and we say, oh, damn, he could be that dude. He could be our go-to guy on the outside. He can be the Shi Smith. He can be the Brian Edwards. He can be the Debo. He can be the Alshon. He can be the Sidney, whoever. He can be the Kenny McKinley. Is there a guy that starts to at least show some promising signs and emerge? Because that's going to be something to get to a bowl game, guys, to get to a 6-win, God forbid, a 7-win season. You're going to have at least one guy step up on the outside. You don't have to be great at the wide receiver position. You don't. But through the spring game and through fall camp, I haven't heard Beamer say anything in regards to, oh, this guy's our number one option. We feel confident in this guy. He's our number one option on the outside. We don't know. And guys, it's been few and far between seasons we've come into where we didn't know who the number one option was at wide receiver. We had no idea. We're like, well, no, normally you have that number one option already. You know who he is. He's already picked out, and you're depending on him all season long. So is there a guy that at least in this game just begins to emerge and starts to maybe separate himself just a bit? Is there a guy that we look at and say, wow, he looks different than everybody else? Is it Brooks? Is it Vann? Is it Joyner? Is it someone else on that roster? We'll have to wait and see. Moving to the defensive side, guys, a big storyline for me We've been talking about defensive line all preseason, and for good reason. When you have the type of athletes they have, from the Enigbares to the Straughns to the Birches to the Pickens, the Sandages to the Boogie Huntleys to the Tonka Hemingways, the Jabari Ellises, to you name it. You keep going down the list. I mean, there are tons of great athletes. To the Aaron Sterlings, there's tons of great athletes on this defensive line. And one of the most popular questions I'm getting right now going in this game is this: how many sacks will the Gamecocks defensive line have on Saturday night? Because again, I think we all know going in this one, South Carolina should really be able to have their way against EIU up front. I mean, again, for any of you that watched that game last weekend, I mean, you saw it's going to be a bit of a mismatch in the trenches. There's no doubt. But we've heard about it all preseason. We've heard about the hype. We've heard about how great the D-line is. Will this be a banner night for the defensive line, and just how many sacks will they get? How good will they be? How good will they be in stopping the run? Hey, this is a unit last year, again, against an all-SEC schedule, mind you, but gave up 195 yards per game on the ground. 195 yards per game on the ground. As good as they were a year ago. That's not good, guys. That was one of the worst in the SEC. You'd love to see the defensive line have a big debut, especially in a game like this where they should, you feel like, be able to dominate. People like JJ and Jordan and Aaron off the edge, they should be able to wreak havoc. They should be able to be in Otto Kuhn's back pocket all night long. Could this be a banner night for the defensive line? Do we see some guys up front? This isn't like the wide receivers or the DBs. We know this cast of crew. We know this cast of characters. We know what this crew's got in store. Is this going to be just how good will the defensive line be Saturday night? And again, after everything we've heard, can they, I guess I would say, sort of have a show? Can they put on a show for the Gamecocks faithful and sort of say, hey, we're going to set the tone for this 2021 season, that the defensive line, it's going to be here week after week after week. We've got big-time, legit NFL type of talent, and we are not going anywhere. We're going to be here all season long. It's going to start with the defensive line up front for that defense. We all know that. We'll be curious to see how they perform on Saturday night. Now, the top storyline, guys, again, on the defensive side, the newcomers in the secondary, guys. And really, you could just say the newcomers on the defense as a whole, but the secondary being a major, major question mark. I'd argue it's probably the biggest question mark on this entire Gamecocks football team. And you got a lot of newcomers. And when you looked at that depth chart, guys like David Spalding, Carlin Platel, Marcellus Dial, Tyrese Ross, host of others that are going to be playing, and they're going to be playing significant snaps. Some of them are going to be starting. Again, this is not an SEC test. You're not going to be able to draw conclusions. Your defense should be able to have a lot of success. This should be a fun night for all parties involved. This really should. And this should be a night that your defense can also develop some confidence. We've been talking a lot about offense. What about your defense? Your defense should be able to force some turnovers, gain confidence, build momentum, and have something to feel good about. But which newcomer stands out? Which of these newcomers really impress us in week one and emerge? Like I said, can't draw conclusions, but which of these dudes start to show, you're like, man, that guy's a big-time player. That guy's a legit player. And just the overall play of the secondary, I think, is something fans really want to see, because we've been hearing all preseason, from yours truly included, about the secondary is no good, and you have this issue, you have that issue. I don't think anybody believes the secondary is going to be a strength by any means, but can we at least see in week one a sign of promise and hope? Because again, if you can't do it in week one against EIU, if you struggle in any facet against EIU, that's not going to be promising for the outlook of this season in a game where you really feel like you should be able to dominate and you're going to out-athlete this crew from top to bottom. So again, those newcomers in the secondary, some of these guys, and Shane Bieber mentioned it, their first time ever playing in a game at Williams-Brice, their first time ever playing in front of 80,000 people. How do they perform? What type of performance can they put on? Can they build that early momentum and gain confidence, especially going into a pivotal game in week two, where ECU is going to be a team that is going to throw the ball, that is going to test the secondary, truly test them. So you're going to want all the confidence and all the good feelings and all the good vibes going into that one as you can get in this week one matchup against the Panthers. Final top storyline for me, guys. And speaking of the secondary and first times being out at Williams-Brice Stadium, and this applies to everyone. This applies to Shane Beamer. This applies to the coordinators. This applies to everyone involved. Like I said, guys, the Shane Beamer era is beginning, a brand new era. And there are a lot of people making a lot of first debuts, a lot of first times for a lot of people. And we already know that it's just like any other sport, right? And I talked to Alex McGrath about this, but in opening days, in season openers, in the first games of the season, right? It's very easy to let the emotions sort of get to you and to have those first game jitters, if you will. You know, Shane Beamer made the point the other day that the normal typical coach speak thing is to say, you know, that a team makes its greatest improvement from week 1 to week 2 of the season. But it is a true thing because the first game, as Shane Beamer pointed out, you don't have a preseason. You don't have a preseason scrimmage you can, you know, against another team, for example, that you can refer to and say, we need to fix this, this, and this. Your first action against someone else is for real. It is for real game action. So my question is this, and what I'll be looking for, are there any first game jitters? You know, I don't expect South Carolina to be a well-oiled machine in week 1 necessarily, even with the opponent, even with, you know, we feel how this game sets up for South Carolina. It should be very, very favorable. It is the first game of the season, but can the Gamecocks at least limit the silly penalties, the procedure issues, you know, lining up incorrectly, just those things that you see happen in the first week of the season that normally are ironed out by week 3 or 4 that are just fundamental things. So do we see any sense of first game jitters? Again, Shane Beamer saying in his presser that, you know, he's like, I could give you this coach speak answer that this is just any other game. He's like, that's bullcrap. It ain't just any other game. This is a huge game. This is a huge game. So do we see any first game jitters? They play any part in the ball game, at least early in the ball game? And will South going to be able to handle their emotions? Because it's going to be a very emotional night, going to be a very emotional day. But those guys on the field have to go play football. You got to go actually play, right? After that first snap, that first hit, it's football after that. It don't even matter. It don't matter who the opponent is across from you. I've had many former players that tell me, you get that first hit in you, hey, we're locked in now. It's just football. I don't care what logo you're wearing. I don't care what the crowd looks like. This is a football game. But first game jitters, can South going to play a, for the most part, clean football game in week 1 of the 2021 football season? All right, guys, let's move into key matchups to watch for Saturday night's game against the Eastern Illinois Panthers. And we will start up front on the line of scrimmage with the Gamecocks defensive line and the guy that J.J. Nigbari will be chasing down all night long. I've got my first key matchup, defensive lineman J.J. Nigbari against quarterback Otto Coons, the freshman quarterback for the Panthers. And again, Coons, a guy I think they're pretty high on with Eastern Illinois. You look at his stats from week 1, 14 to 29. He did have 2 interceptions, but he threw for 253 yards. He was sacked 5 times, guys. He was sacked 5 times in that game. If Indiana State's defensive line is sacking Otto Coons 5 times, what on God's green earth are J.J. Nigbari and Birch and Pickens and Sandage and Strawn and Sterling, what are those guys going to do to Otto Coons? But specifically Nigbari, you know, this is a guy that did not have to come back, right? He didn't have to come back to South Carolina. He could be at a training camp and getting ready for an NFL season right now. But he chose to come back to South Carolina. He chose to perfect his craft. He chose to be, you know, he's a preseason first teamer, second teamer at worst on most preseason lists. My question is, can J.J. Nigbari, just how much of hell can he make life for Otto Coons on Saturday night? Because Otto Coons, I expect him not to be running around for his life. I'll be very curious to see how their head coach, Adam Cushing, their offensive coordinator, how do they scheme this thing up? Because they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to do something. I mean, again, you surrender 5 sacks to Indiana State, and then you got to take on South Carolina's defensive line. So the Gamecocks' defensive success this season, it is going to start with the defensive line and them getting in the face of the quarterback, whoever they are playing. And it starts with a guy like J.J. Nigbari. And I see this game on Saturday night being no different. So again, my first key matchup, defensive lineman J.J. Nigbari against quarterback Otto Coons. Guys, let's move to the other side of the ball for South Carolina. And like I told you guys, Zeb Nolan, Jason Brown, Colton Gauthier, what did the quarterbacks do on Saturday night? Yes, that's all fine and dandy. We all love to talk quarterbacks. But this is a football team. It is going to start offensively with the run game. This is a team that's going to lean on the run game. And I don't really know how much Kevin Harris is going to play on Saturday, if he plays at all. I think Marshawn Lloyd will be the feature back in this one. So my second key matchup, running back Marshawn Lloyd against linebacker Jason Johnson. Johnson, their leading returning tackler from the spring, 66 tackles, 6 tackles for loss in their spring season. And of course, guys, I don't have to really tell you guys much about Marshawn Lloyd because you know who Marshawn Lloyd is at this point. And Jason Johnson, a nice player for them in the middle, but I expect South Carolina to try to run the football and establish the run early in this one. I think it's going to be Marshawn Lloyd that is going to be taking the first snaps of the game, and I think he's going to be taking a lot of the snaps in the football game. Now, he's not the only one. We're going to see Jaquandre White. We're going to see Rashad Amos. We're probably going to see Juju McDowell. We might even see somebody like Nathan Harris-Wayne. You never know, depending on how the game goes. And maybe, just maybe, we'll see a little bit of Kevin Harris, but whoever is in the backfield, making that man miss. I feel like, we all feel South Carolina should be able to push the EIU line around, but there's going to be times you got to make a guy miss. And Marshawn Lloyd, he's been as advertised to make a guy miss. Jason Johnson will be that dude waiting for him in the middle of the defense on the outside, wherever he is. He's going to be shadowing him. Can Marshawn Lloyd win that matchup more often than not? Because again, when you put a hat on a hat, you get at that second level to really break a big play and bust a game like this open. You got to get past a guy like Jason Johnson. So again, for that reason, my second key matchup, running back Marshawn Lloyd against linebacker Jason Johnson. Guys, my final key matchup to watch in this one, like I said, the secondary. Arguably the biggest question mark on the Gamecocks football team, certainly on the defense, but arguably the biggest question mark on this football team entering the 2021 football season. And, the Gamecocks got a huge boost over the last week or so when we heard and found out that Cam Smith should be good to go in this one against EIU. And that's a good thing because EIU features a pretty solid wide receiver who had a big game in week 1. So again, guys, my final key matchup, defensive back Cam Smith against wide receiver Tyler Ringwood for the Panthers. Ringwood, guys, a UNC Charlotte transfer. So he is a veteran player, had 5 catches for 116 yards in their game Saturday against Indiana State. You've got to think he is going to be Otto Kuhn's go-to guy. And again, I know it's EIU. You're going to out-athlete them top to bottom, every single position. But you really need to see the secondary show you something in this football game. You need to see a guy like Cam Smith. Is he 110%? I think if he wasn't, he wouldn't be playing. But whether it's Cam Smith, whether it's Marcellus Dial, whether it's Darius Rush, or whoever's on the outside, Dominic Hill, I don't care who it is. You need to see South Carolina's defensive backs win more battles than they lose in this one. And a guy like Tyler Ringwood, if you're not careful, again, he's played at UNC Charlotte. He's played some good football, had a really good game Saturday. He's probably a guy that can burn you. He's probably a guy that can make you pay if you're not disciplined. We've seen a lot of breakdowns and coverages over the last couple of years when it comes to Gamecocks defense. So again, I want to see something out of Cam Smith. I want to see something from the secondary. So again, my final key matchup to watch for in the passing game and the Gamecocks defense of it, defensive back Cam Smith against the EIU wide receiver and the UNC Charlotte transfer, Tyler Ringwood. All right, guys, let's move into our keys to the game for Saturday's game when the Gamecocks take on the Panthers. 3 keys to the game. And I'll start with my first one, guys. Like I said, I've mentioned guys like J.J. Nibare. I haven't talked a lot about South Carolina's offensive line. Of course, 4 of 5 starters returning, over 80 career starts, and you feel like that's going to be a unit you truly do lean on in this 2021 football season. My first key to the game, guys, is this. In a game like this, we feel like South Carolina should be able to do whatever they want to do. You feel like you're going to out-athlete EIU, but really where you should be able to win and win often and direct this game in whatever direction you want it to go to is in the trenches. It's in the trenches. You can kill the will and spirit of an opponent if you can dominate them and do whatever you want to them in the trenches. So again, my first key to the game for South Carolina, dominate the trenches. And I didn't put this second part, but I would say dominate the trenches from the opening whistle. Do it immediately. Again, there's no excuse. You have the athletes, you have the bodies, you're bigger than them, you're quicker than them, you're more athletic than them. There's no reason why you should not be able to push EIU around. So again, my first key to the game, let your athletes be athletes up front. Go make big plays up front. Impose your will on the opponent and dominate the trenches. My second key to the game, and guys, I touched on this earlier when I talked about the first game jitters and as far as procedural issues and pre-snap penalties and all that stuff. Guys, again, we all agree there aren't going to be many folks, if any, out there picking EIU to beat South Carolina, right? I don't think anyone with half a brain is going to be doing that. Again, the Gamecocks a 42.5-point favorite. But in a game like this, the only way that this game is uncomfortably close for South Carolina fans is if you go out there and you play sloppy and you put the football on the ground and you turn it over and you're doing stupid stuff and you're committing stupid fouls and stupid penalties and just playing bad football. Simply put, guys, if you play a clean game and you execute the fundamentals, it's going to be a fun night for you at Williams-Brice Stadium. So, again, my second key to the game, guys, simply put, execute the fundamentals. Week one, it's week one for everyone. I would say less is more in this situation. You're not playing a Georgia. You're not playing a UNC. You're not playing a Tennessee where you don't need to do more than you're capable of. Stick to the game plan. Don't be a hero, whether it be on offense, defense, special teams. Control what you can control and just simply put, execute. Stick to the fundamentals you've been working on all preseason camp. Execute the game plan, exactly what Shane Beamer and Satterfield and Clayton White and Pete Limbo call. And I think if the Gamecocks do that and you just simply play a clean football game fundamentally, it's going to be a really, really fun night for you. And you're going to look up at that scoreboard and say, yeah, that was a hell of a debut for the Shane Beamer era. So again, my second key to the game, execute the fundamentals. My final key to Saturday night's game as the Gamecocks take on the Eastern Illinois Panthers in Shane Beamer's debut as South Carolina head coach. Like I said, this sort of feeds off the fundamentals point, the previous key, and it sort of also feeds off the jitters. But again, like I told you guys, we've all felt the emotions since Shane Beamer got hired, and he has absolutely crushed the preseason. The honeymoon phase has been unlike anything I've ever experienced. Talking season, Shane Beamer won that. We've seen him crush in recruiting. The morale of Gamecock Nation is at an all-time high, right? I think you'd all agree out there. There's going to be a lot of emotion flying around leading up into this football game. From the fans mainly, right? From the tailgate to Gamecock Walk, and then we're going to get in there, and it's going to be 2001, and the team's going to run, and it's going to be crazy, right? It's going to be crazy. I mean, truly, I think it's going to be a very, very special day. And one of those that we all remember, all Gamecock fans remember. Whether you're at the game or you're watching on TV, it's going to be a very, very special night, okay? But again, like I said earlier, when you get bopped, you get hit in the mouth, all of a sudden it's football. And so what I want to see South going to do, because it's emotional for the players too. It's emotional for the coaches. I mean, Shane Beamer has said so. This isn't just another normal game. He said, that's bullcrap. I'm not going to give you that coach speak. And he's stated multiple times how emotional he's going to be running out of the tunnel for 2001. He stated that many, many times. But for me, what I want to see this football team control their emotions. And that's my third and final key to the game, guys. Control the emotions, right? Because, listen, fans can go crazy. Fans can be emotional. Fans can overreact. They can not react. They can do whatever. But you on the field of play, I thought we saw way too often in the previous regime, South Carolina would come out, for a much bigger game than this, but they'd almost they would let the emotions get to them both positively and negatively. You saw the Gamecocks get way, way, way too high and way, way, way too low. And to be successful in any walk of life, but sports as well, I think it's important to stay in the middle. Be even keel. Play the game all the time like it's 0-0. Who gives a damn what the score is? Who can block out the outside noise? Go execute. Go do what you've been taught. Go do exactly what the coaches are telling you. Trust they've given you the best game plan and go win. And that's it. It can be easy to get carried away in week one, especially when you're opening up a brand new era with a brand new head coach. But I want to see a football team that is composed. Again, I think that's going to show us that, hey, this is a well-coached football team. They're disciplined. This is a disciplined football team, right? Nobody wants to see South Carolina go out there and commit stupid penalties and excessive celebration. We saw that way too often with the previous regime. And I'm not trying to be the old guy in the room and be, be the grumpy guy and, I don't want to see players celebrate. No, they don't need to do. But I want to see a football team that is composed, that knows that looks mature, that can handle its emotions, that can go out, simply execute the game plan. A football team that, yes, while they're excited, you should be excited. If you're not, you need to check your polls. But while they're excited, they expect to win. They know they have a job to do. They go out and they execute. And then we can all celebrate and kiss and cheer and smile after the game is over and the task is completed. So again, my 3 keys to the game. Number 1, dominate the trenches. Number 2, execute the fundamentals. And number 3, control your emotions. All right, guys, let's move to your listener questions. We do have a few. Just John FB says his prediction is 100-10, hashtag Cox by 90. Krusty Andy says, no question, just thank you for the psych and getting us through the offseason. Krusty Andy, thank you, my friend, for the love and support through the preseason. I truly do appreciate it. eCarch08, is Zeb Nolan the second coming of Colin Hill? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, eCarch. No, Zeb is simply filling in until Luke Doty gets back. The situation last year, totally different. You got to be able to separate the two. It's a completely different situation. So no, the answer is no. Luke Patch _95, 42.5 points is a lot. Do we cover? Well, if you listen to yesterday's show, I think yes, South Carolina does. And again, I guess that kind of spoils my prediction for tomorrow. I will lock in my official prediction tomorrow. But, really with that spread, if you say South Carolina is going to cover, you are banking on the Gamecocks backups being just as good, if not better, than the starters when they come in. You're banking on them executing and scoring touchdowns as well, because I don't think Shane Beamer's going to leave the starters in there until it's 42-0. I don't see that. So that's what you're banking on. You're also banking on that Marcus Satterfield and Shane Beamer and company are going to keep their foot on the gas pedal, which I think they will. I think they will do that. So, again, it'd be a no play for me, Luke, to be totally honest with you. But if I had to pick one, I would say South Carolina will cover, and that's why it was my best bet on yesterday's show. Austin G _45, who makes the biggest impact on game 1? That's a great question. I will say Marshawn Lloyd. I just think the running back's going to have a fantastic night. I'd be shocked if the Gamecocks rush for less than 200 yards. I'd be absolutely floored if they rush for 200 yards. I think 250 or 300 is more likely. And I think Marshawn Lloyd, I think he's going to have a very, very big night for the Gamecocks. I think he wants to make a point in his debut after missing last year, coming back from the injury. I think he wants to make a point that, hey, I'm here. I'm ready to be the guy. I'm ready to be an impact player, an all-conference, all-American type of dude. I think Marshawn Lloyd shows out. I think he balls out on Saturday night. Brennan _Smith 47. Who will score the first touchdown of the season for the Gamecocks? Now, that's a tough one. I'm going to go, See, the typical answer would be Marshawn Lloyd runs it in. But normally it's like some wacky touchdown. I'm going to go the Karon Joyner in a feel-good story scores the first touchdown of the season. Now, I don't know if it's a passing touchdown. I don't know if it'll be a wildcat. I don't know if it'll be a pass. I don't know what it'll be. I don't know how it'll happen. I'm going to go out on a limb, though. I'm going to say Dak Joyner. If it's not Dak Joyner, I think it'll be Jaheim Bell with the first touchdown. So one of those two guys, again, I know that's not a great answer. I should probably just pick one. I'm going to go one of those two guys, though. Dak Joyner or Jaheim Bell will score the first touchdown of the 2021 football season. Guys, this has been a blast, by the way. Thank you so much for all the questions, guys, the engagement. Of course, that number, by the way, 843-790-3377. I'll go ahead and promote that right now, guys. After the game, that is the number to call in because, once again, we will have listener questions and voicemails to play on the podcast. So again, would love to hear from you all after the game, during the game, whatever it might be. But again, thank you all so much for continuing to engage, to be locked in, leaving your questions, your comments, your thoughts. Like I said, guys, the beauty is in the banter, and I truly, truly do appreciate it. Guys, we're not done yet, but that is going to do it for our game preview of EIU, but we're not done yet here on a Thursday. We have got a legendary, and I mean a legendary conversation with one of the best to ever do it in Gamecocks football history. And he's a friend of the show, by the way. And every conversation I've had with this man has been insane. It's been incredible, right? But this last one, if you were not at Tin Roof, and if you did not tune in to the live stream from Tin Roof last week, folks, you missed a treat. And again, I know the word legendary gets tossed around, but Brad Lawing, the thing I love about Coach Lawing, he does not hold back. He is very, very honest. And in many of the things we talked about, he did not hold back. This is an insane conversation, a legendary conversation. And again, I appreciate Coach Lawing, his friendship, his kindness, being open to coming out to Tin Roof and taking part in the show. And guys, I'm telling you right now, you are going to thoroughly enjoy this conversation. But again, guys, appreciate you all tuning in. Like I said, guys, stay tuned. Tomorrow on tomorrow's podcast, I will officially lock in my prediction for Saturday's game as the Gamecocks take on EIU and the Shane Beamer era begins in Columbia, South Carolina. But until then, guys, enjoy this conversation. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Have a great rest of your Thursday and enjoy this interview with former Gamecocks defensive line coach Brad Lawing. Former Gamecocks defensive line coach Brad Lawing. Coach Lawing. Let's give it up for Coach Lawing.
Thank you.
How about it? Coach, great to have you. Before we get going, Coach, I've actually got a surprise for you, okay? I got a bit of a surprise. I'm very excited to give this to you. Hold on one second. We got a surprise for Coach Lawing. It's in my bag here. So, obviously, I think I know who your favorite player is at this point, Mr. DJ Swearinger.
I love him.
Love DJ. I wanted to present this to you right here. The piece from the studio. I know when you came by, you said you really enjoyed that. If you guys can't see it, it's actually the piece we gave away last week. A little bit smaller version. So, a little bit smaller version. But my good friend at Apex Art and Design, my good friend Jeremy Smith, Apex Art and Design, hand drew that as the hit against Clemson in 2012. And, I just wanted to give that to you. Maybe put that somewhere in your man cave. So
I will. I'd recruited DJ and, at Greenwood. And on that play right there, I'm probably not far behind DJ right there because I knew once he cold-cocked that guy and he went out there and did his, what they call it, MMA or whatever, MMC. And I said, he's getting ready to get a penalty. And I started after him, and Coach Spurs grabbed me by the shoulder. He said, "It's okay." It's okay. And it was. And that hit had as much to do with anything winning that game. Yeah.
And you talked about when you recruited DJ. We'll talk about DJ for a bit because such a legendary Gamecock and a guy that, fans still look at now is, it's crazy. Obviously, we're sitting here at Tin Roof, and I joked around with the Tin Roof guys about the T-shirt I have that is free Jungle Boy after his hit in the UAB game and whatever. He's still a legend around these parts, but his recruiting trip, and you talked about recruiting and what he said to Dabo Swinney. Tell us about that recruiting trip again, because that's one of the most legendary things I've ever heard of.
You talking about DJs?
Yeah, DJ's recruitment, and I know he talked about what he said to Dabo. I don't know if he told you this actually. That's when I talked to him directly. Yes, yeah. So DJ told me that you guys obviously recruited him. It was Tennessee and South Carolina, and he had committed to South Carolina. And Clemson came in really, really late, him being a guy from up there. And they came in really late, and I believe maybe Dabo had just gotten the job or something like that. But they came to his high school, and he brought the defensive coordinator with him. And they're trying to recruit him. And DJ just looked at him and said, "Coach, I'm committed to South Carolina, and I promise you I'm going to beat you all 4 years I'm there."
And he did.
And he did. And he did. He did. No, great stuff. Coach, how you been, man? It's great to have you.
Good. Just – all this new COVID stuff, you kind of got to look out for. And so my wife, she decided to go shopping around town. She was going to come in here, and she said, "I'm just going to go shopping right now."
Love it. Well, Coach, it's great to have you again. Like I said, man, I know we've chatted a couple of times in the studio, but it's always a pleasure, obviously, to talk with you. And of course, man, we're sitting here 10 days away from kickoff, so I want to talk about this season and obviously the season that's going to be in just a bit. But the guys are going through fall camp right now and the dog days of August, if you will. And I know you were coaching back when two-a-days was still a thing. I know guys today are very happy that that's not something that is happening anymore. Just talk about what those coaches, players, everything else are going through during fall camp, because I know we're anxious, we're eager for kickoff, we're ready to go, but the players are too, and the coaches especially, because the schedule right now, I mean, it is to the time you wake up, the time you go to sleep, they are eating, breathing, sleeping, everything football.
And I'm not old, I'm only 64, but when I was in college, we had 3-a-days.
3-a-days.
Yeah, we practiced. We go early in the morning, and then and that was like shells, shoulder pads and thigh pads, whatever. And then in the afternoon, we scrimmaged every afternoon. Every day was a scrimmage. And of course, that was full gear. And then in the evening, and I was a linebacker, so I was on all the special teams. But in the evening, you did, helmets and shorts, and they ran you to death doing all the special teams. So I used to tell kids about that, and they couldn't believe it. I mean, they said 3 times a day. But during 2 days, and of course, the coaches are more efficient right now because of the equipment and the technology. But the main thing is that you want to make sure that you get as much work you can get done without losing your players to cramps, things like that. Because, if a kid cramps up, you may lose him for a whole week, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
And so, I thought that right there, the medical part of it is something that you have to really pay a lot of attention to. But 2 days, again, you do a lot of walkthroughs. You do a lot of, preparation and meetings. So when you hit the field, you don't have to be out there for 2.5 hours. You can go out there for an hour and 45 minutes, and everything's fast. And that's the one thing, we practice different than the way we used to. But everything is fast, and you teach kids the pace of how to play.
Right.
But it's, you've got to do that. Otherwise, especially in South Carolina, the heat you have here. And I had a friend of mine, George Perlis. He recently passed away. George was the head coach at Michigan State for a lot of years. And George was the head coach at Michigan State when they played Florida State in Tallahassee. And he told one of his assistants when they came back out in the third quarter, he said, "Geez," he said, "it's too hot to even damn coach it in this weather, much less play in it." And he was right.
Right.
The weather you have in the Southeast is tough. And especially here in Columbia, there's a reason they put Fort Jackson over there. I always told people that, it's hot. It's hot and it's humid, and you've got to make sure you're used to it because you're going to play in it. And of course, I always thought that was a great reason for South Carolina to play night games, was to get away from that heat. But if you play enough afternoon games, and of course, anytime you can get a team like in South Carolina, can get a Tennessee or Kentucky, for a noon game, that's our advantage here. Big time, because it's.
So you're saying we should be pulling for noon games, is what you're saying? Against like Kentucky week 5, we should hope that's a noon game.
When you play the right team.
I don't know.
Because I'm going to tell you, heat it up, heat it up, because them old boys that come to third quarter, they're going to be struggling now.
Right.
They're going, and again, I've always said this about substitution. Skill kids, it doesn't affect as much. And if a skill kid gets tired, you can take him to the sideline, fill him back up with gas, and he's good to go. A big kid, you better have a great rotation of how you're going to do things, because when the big kid runs out of gas, they're done. You can't fill them back up with gas. There's nothing left. And if you don't have enough depth, if you haven't had a great rotation, then you're going to be in trouble in the fourth quarter. That's just the way it is, in the Southeast, and or all over the South. But that's all. Those big kids are different, and that's what I always. Every Thursday night, I would set my rotation for how I was going to play kids, and I always tried to have a core group of about 10 guys that I was going to use. Some of them may have played 5 or 6 plays. Some of them were going to play 10 or 15 plays. Some of them, 30, 35 plays. But hopefully, I never had to ask anybody to play more than 35 or 40 plays, because, you can't do it at, full speed level. You look at the NFL, those guys, they don't play but about 50-some plays a game on each side of the ball. When you get in the heat down here, and then if you're playing an away game on turf, I think when I first came here, we had turf. And, what it was it was that concrete out there with piece of dang carpet laid over top of it. But my point is, turf is 15, 20 degrees warmer, and you're going to lose kids. And then you're not playing with your best players coming to fourth quarter.
And you mentioned the rotation, and I was looking back at, again, your tenure at South Carolina, in case anybody forgot, 1989 to 1998, and then returned 2006 to 2012. Same school, two very different stints, especially when you talk on the field and level of success. But I was just thinking back when you were talking defensive line rotation and having 9, 10 bodies. And we talk about recruiting, and fans focus on getting the big 4 stars and the big 5 stars. But that's why you really recruit, is to have that depth, to have a rotation. Because I think back to 10, 11, 12, when you were here coaching those defensive lines, I mean, you guys had, I mean, just it wasn't just those front 4. It was the next 4 and then the next 4, and it was just that depth you guys had.
I mean, I remember we were playing Citadel one year, and the game's over. We've already beat them. I took Clowney out of the game. He's sitting there standing beside me, and Coach Spurs came over. He said, "What's he doing standing here? How come he's not out there playing?" I said, "Coach," I said, "he's done. He's done. All he's going to do is go out there and get hurt, you know, because he was done. But you got to rotate guys, and that's why you do recruit depth. Sometimes you may play with a lesser player, but a lesser player in the fourth quarter has got again, I use the term a full tank of gas. He can play at a higher level than somebody that's just saying, you know, they're done. And so, again, having a rotation, I always thought the defensive line, the linebacker was very important. And I think at receiver, you got to have a good rotation, because those guys are running all over the place.
Right.
You know, you get a lot of letters from fans over the years, and one of the best letters I ever remember when Sparky was here. We had Robert Brooks, was one of my receivers. I think a lot of people here remember Robert Brooks. He's one of the all-time great receivers. Played for the Packers for a long time, Lambeau Leap, all that. But there was a fan that wrote Sparky a letter, and you never paid much attention to that stuff, because most time they're guys that they're high school kids write to you. Right. And the guy said, you know, he said, "Coach, I got a great plan for the first series of the game." He said, "Take so-and-so," we had a receiver. He said, "Run him on a go route. And just throw the ball as deep as you can." He said, that corner's going to have to chase him. In the very next series, he hustle back to the line of scrimmage, run it again. He said, then put Robert Brooks in on third down and let him do it. And he said, "I'll bet you it'll be a touchdown." And you know what? I mean, the guys really thought it through. And we did something similar to that, and we scored a touchdown.
Robert Brooks, what a legend. I guess that was obviously pre-Twitter days. That would have been like me tweeting at the coach, basically, about what to do.
I didn't even know. I still don't even understand Twitter. But I used to tell recruits, I said, "I want to talk to you on the phone, or I want to talk to you in person." Yeah. I said, "If I got to do Twitter and all this," I said, "you're the wrong guy."
Do you feel like, I'll ask you this, do you feel like that's pivotal now in coaching to do that? Do you think you have to do that? I guess Saban doesn't, obviously, but you see more and more coaches and what Shane Beamer's doing on social media.
I coached with Nick. Yeah. If Nick thought he had to do that, he would have thrown up. And but you know, I mean, the personal approach matters. And I would tell kids straight up. I said, if I've got to do all this, then I'm recruiting the wrong person. And, you know, and if you see me using Twitter on social media, I said, that's not me. That's my GA doing it for me. Right. You know, I never believed in that. I've never signed a kid because of that. I've never lost a kid because of that. And the kids appreciate it more. I mean, when you call them up and talk to them on the phone, or you go by schools and see them, you know, you go to their homes, that's what the kids appreciate more. But again, every now and then you'll have some, they want to be a Twitter hero and, you know, and want to poke their chest. I got this many tweets, which I don't even know what a damn tweet is, but they get all that stuff. And but most of those kids, you'll find out about most of those kids do not pan out. Right. You know, because they need all the attention. I remember we had one in, this was before, I guess, the Twitter thing. We had a kid when I was at Michigan State named Kelly Baraka, number one running back in the country. He ended up it was us in Michigan. He ended up going to Michigan because all the stuff the fans have been doing, you know, this and that. And the kid never played it down and washed out, and he was out of school within a year because he wasn't getting all the attention anymore. I think it's probably, if you look at that Prunty kid that was probably here, there was and I know his dad, so I mean, that's a whole other different story. Right. But, I mean, that guy right there is bad news. He hates South Carolina. And so bottom line is, you know, I think a lot of those kids, they need that attention, and if they got to have it all the time and all of a sudden they don't get it, you know, they have problems. Yeah.
I mean, you got kids now on social media posting and it's a separate conversation, but guys posting like, my offer list and top 20s and the recruiting, and it's just a lot of it. It feels as so just it's a production, instead of like trying to actually find the best fit. It's just it's a little over the top.
I mean, JD JD knew he was coming to South Carolina, and he said all of a sudden he came out of the blue. His coach said, "I'm gonna wait till my birthday." It was on Valentine's Day to go ahead and commit and sign. I said, "JD, you've already told us you're coming." He said, "I'm coming." He said, "But ESPN wants me to wait until my birthday." And I said, "This is ridiculous." I said, "You don't really believe all this crap's worth anything." His coach said, "They want me to do that." Of course, I don't know if there's money under the table or what, but to do it. But that's just, that's how stupid it was. And so, but yeah, I mean, the kids that need all the attention in recruiting very seldom, if ever, really, really work out. You can look at South Carolina. Think of all the kids that left, quit, transferred, whatever. I mean, a lot of them were the ones that had, they just needed all that attention. Yeah. And they wanted it. And then all of a sudden, they don't get it when they get here, and it's a problem.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Jadavion Clowney, of course. I want to talk about him and his recruitment, and, of course, just humble brag, but when you recruit and sign the greatest recruit ever, I mean, that's something to hang your hat on. What was his recruitment like? I mean, we know it was fierce, but I'll tell you, I know 2011, 2010, 2011, Twitter and all that social media hadn't really quite taken off yet, certainly the way it is now, but I don't remember, like, JD making a big to-do of it. It was kind of a pretty quiet process, I felt like.
JD, he wasn't into recruiting for the most part. I mean, he was a bashful kid.
Right.
I mean, he loved the Gamecocks now. And, I mean, we knew he was coming long before he ever announced it and all that. So, but Ellis Johnson was the main recruiter for Jadavion. And I was kind of the secondary guy because I was going to be the guy that coached him. And I was recruiting Marcus Lattimore at the time. So I had my plate full as far as what was going on in South Carolina. And Ellis and I did most of the state. We probably recruited 95% of the kids in the state of South Carolina that came here. And but Ellis was the main guy. In fact, there was something came out somewhere in a paper or whatever. And in the final meeting we had with Ellis's mom, Josina, and his granddad, and something came out that somebody else was there or whatever, and Ellis, he called me up and said, "Brad," he said, "who all was in that meeting with us that day?" And I said, "Well, you and I and Josina and his his dad and granddad." He said, "That's what I thought." And so, but Ellis did a great job keeping us in there because, see, as the coordinator, he didn't get a chance to go out a lot. So that was kind of my job to go out and, handle all that. But Ellis was the driving force behind it.
Right.
Ron Cooper did a great job of helping get us Holloman, and then Holloman turned
because he was a Clemson commit, right? What was it?
Right.
Holloman flipped him from Clemson, yeah.
And Ron Cooper was a big reason that happened. But I remember going to Rock Hill, and Cooper and I went in there to see Holloman and had our little visit with him. And I could tell he wasn't fired up about Clemson, so we got that kind of flip.
Yeah.
And then Billy Napier started doing some stuff that was crazy. And we had an alum that didn't like Napier very good, so he filmed Billy at a ball game doing some stuff that you can't do in recruiting, and sent it to Joe Don or Billy Don, whatever that AD's name was. I don't even know what
Terry Don. Terry Don, yeah.
Sent it to him. Well, I mean, it had Billy doing stuff. I mean, he was trying to strong arm the Holloman's dad, basically, and that was done because he had to bug out. But Holloman helped us get Gilmore, which helped us get Jadavion. And if you want to point at one person responsible for all that, is Ellis Johnson, in my opinion. And Ellis had to do a lot of it from the side. A lot of times I was his mouthpiece. He'd just tell me when I would go in there, he said, "Man, we got to sell this, sell that." And we were always on the same page. But he and I did almost all the South Carolina stuff. And I'd been here so long, and Ellis is from Winsboro, and that was kind of, that's the way we were recruited.
So I'm curious, what were you guys selling? What were the main selling? I know at that point it was, hey, come here, do things that have never been done. We have Coach Spurrier, but I mean, what were the other major selling points that?
Main one was player development.
Okay.
Ellis and I, say, here's the guys we've developed over the years. You want to go somewhere and chance your career to play for some guy that's never really developed. A lot of players, or go somewhere where you're going to get developed. And the other thing that happens with that is that so many kids get caught up in all that the internet stuff that we were talking about,
right.
But JD never did. Lattimore never did. Gilmore never did. In fact, if you see them talk on TV or whatever nowadays, I mean, they're almost bashful kids.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't into that. And their high school coaches had a big play in it. I mean, Bobby Carroll did a great job of handling kids at South Point. And I, you know, Marcus's, you know, coaches he had there in Burns, I mean, they were great with him. And his stepdad, Vernon, was awesome, you know, keeping him grounded. So, yeah, there were a lot of kids. And I tell people one of the reasons this program got turned like it did, we had a great run of players in South Carolina. I mean, a great run.
Yeah.
And we didn't just get some of them. We got them all. We got everything, one of them.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons South Carolina flipped so quick. And, you know, and then all of a sudden Clemson kind of became a non-factor for a long time.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know what happened. I mean, Ellis left and went to Southern Miss and then went there, settled, whatever. And then I left and went to Florida. And I don't know what all happened. That's none of my business. I wasn't here then. But, you know, I catch a lot of grief for why I left South Carolina. And, you know, go to Florida. I said, shit, they gave me a $100,000 raise. What would you do? I mean,
Yeah.
What would you do?
Right.
And so, but I love this place.
Yeah.
Gamecocks always been good to me, and I love South Carolina, and that's why I live here now. My grandkids, my daughter and her husband, and grandkids live here, and I think my son one day when he finally gets through coaching, he's at Alabama right now. But I think when he gets through coaching one day, he'll end up probably coming back here to live. So, yeah, we love this area.
Yeah, and that's why when people ask, though, I know you're happily retired right now on Lake Murray. That's great. When people ask, hey, you think Coach Long can come back and coach defensive line? I'm like, I think he's had his fill. I think he's.
I have, and the thing about it is I'm sorry, but a lot of the recruiting, the way it's done now, I probably wouldn't be very good at because I'd be too blunt with kids.
You think that's why Coach Spurrier got out of it because of the changes in recruiting? It's just.
I think. I mean, he'll be blunt with kids. I've been blunt with kids, and you tell them the truth instead of telling them what they want to hear.
Right.
And nowadays, a lot of these kids, if you don't tell them what they want to hear all the time, and that's all good and fine, but then when you get them there and they don't perform, it's because their expectations of your program are so different than what it really is. And I'll go back to the Prunty kid, and I don't even know him.
Right.
But I know his dad, and his dad, see, I was recruiting Lottie Ajibo and Cliff Gathers at Hargrave, and his dad was the head coach there.
Really?
Yeah. And I went up there, and we already had it worked out. Lottie was coming to South Carolina. Nobody knew it, but he was coming. We had it worked out. Cliff Gathers was coming to South Carolina. Nobody knew it, but he was coming. And they had both qualified, so they didn't have to sign on National Signing Day. And they didn't have a signing day. They just had to report to school in January.
Right.
And so I met Cliff and Lottie up there in the middle of the night in the field. And Cliff Gathers' dad's van. And we sat up there and we got everything ironed out. But Robert Prunty had put a thing, this guy can't come here. I mean, he's not welcome. And I wasn't, because I asked him, I said, who can I look at on your team? And he wouldn't give me those two names. I said, why won't you give me those names? He said, they don't exist to you. And so anyway, I got it done. And then whenever we signed those kids, or didn't sign them, they came to school. Because, again, Lottie was supposed to go to Virginia Tech. Cliff was supposed to go to Georgia. Then Prunty's dad, I mean, it was like, you are not welcome here. You cannot come back here, which is fine. I already had the kids. It didn't matter. And that's why when his son came here and then he left, it didn't surprise me at all, because I think the acorn didn't fall very far from the tree.
Wow. Well, so you talked about we'll move, kind of transition the whole recruiting and winning and recruiting to now and Coach Shane Beamer and what he's doing. And like you said, it's no secret the reason Sal kind of had the success they did from 10 to 13 and, you know, other teams before that was the wins in recruiting in state. And there was an unprecedented run of athletes in the state of South Carolina. Like you said, you guys got them all. You look ahead to some of these future classes, and I don't know, Coach, if you've sat down and looked, but, like, for example, the number one prospect in the state of or the country for 2024 in the top 100, number one is a quarterback from the state of South Carolina. And
who is that? I'm curious.
I forget his name. Does anybody remember the kid's name?
Where's he from? What school?
I think the Upstate, I want to say.
I don't keep up with that stuff anymore.
Well, I was just going to ask you about.
I'll get up in the morning.
Yeah.
And because we don't have the newspapers like we used to, I read the newspaper on my phone. But I have no idea about all. I don't keep up with all that stuff.
Well, I was just going to say winning and recruiting in the state. I mean, obviously, your neighbors to the in the Upstate, what they're doing, but what do Shane Beamer, Marcus Satterfield, Clayton White, his staff, what do they need to do to – because I feel like what you guys did, you guys made South Carolina the cool place to go. Like that matters to kids, like
right.
What do you – I mean, I don't know if say what advice would you give them is the right word, but Shane, and he's going to be genuine. I feel like he's going to be more on the blunt side. I know I feel like he's a tell it like it is kind of guy, but I mean, what would you say – to fans, what do you think they're going to do on the recruiting trail to lock down those kids in state, especially?
In my opinion, they've got to keep developing players. If they'll develop players and take kids that aren't as good as they're what everybody thinks they are, and make them better. If they'll keep doing that, then they'll start getting more players. I mean, I believe that. The thing that Shane has right now, he's got a long hill to climb because of what Dabo's done at Clemson. I mean, my hat's off to Dabo. I mean, he's done a great job. I know he has. And but Shane can get it done. It's just not going to happen overnight. And you can never accept losing. You can never accept, playing poorly. But so you keep trying to get better, and then you just got and then go win some ball games, win some games you're not supposed to win sometimes. But just as long as he never accepts mediocrity, the losing, whatever, he'll be fine. And Shane, I mean, he comes in from a coaching background. He's going to do a great job at South Carolina. I really believe that.
The kid, by the way, it's Jaden Davis out of Catawba Ridge High School in Fort Mill, South Carolina. So That is the kid. Top of the class for 2024. And you just look ahead and you're like, man, it feels like you need to land a guy like that because you got to solve the quarterback position. I mean, that's, I think of the priority list for Shane Beamer and hitting the home run at quarterback. I feel like that's the position in recruiting. That can change the program if you get that guy right.
Well, let me ask you something. I was outside and my wife let me off. And I was walking in here. You talking about last quarterback to wear number 1? Was it Anthony Wright?
Yeah, it was Anthony Wright. Yeah.
I recruited Anthony. I was outside.
A1.
I was outside that window and I was waving. I was waving at you, and I was going to Anthony Wright.
Oh, my bad. I missed
you. He was the player of the year in North Carolina that year. Yeah,
it's funny. The best story I've heard about A1 is actually Eric Kimry, of course. You know who Eric is.
Right.
And he's a friend of mine. I know a friend of yours as well. But Eric told me, you grow up with dreams and aspirations of being a professional football player. And so he gets to South Carolina, though. He told me he walks in, he sees Anthony Wright throw a football, and he says, maybe I should just be a coach.
Yeah.
So
Anthony had a cannon on him now. He could spin it with the best of them.
Yeah, for sure. Coach Long, we've actually got a question from the audience for you. Speaking on recruiting, I know you just kind of sort of just touched on it, but it says, what are 3 keys for South Carolina to become as successful in recruiting as you were under your tenure? Are there 3 things you could point out or just a couple of things of what they need to do to become as successful as you guys were when you were here and reeling in those great classes?
I think number 1, again, you've got to be straight up with kids. And especially now with the internet. I mean, when I first started coaching, you could tell a kid something, and he may never find out the truth, till they got here. I mean, that sounds sad to say.
Right.
But you got to be straight up with kids, and tell them the truth. And then number 2, again, develop kids. There's
right.
3 parts of recruiting.
Right.
There's the evaluation, there's the recruiting part, and then there's the development part. And if you fail any 3 of those, you're going to end up with a bad team. And so, but the 3 things again: be straight up with kids, because if you are, you're going to win the high school coaches in the state. If you tell a kid something that's not going to happen, you're going to lose that coach. You're going to lose that school.
Right.
You're going to lose it for a long
Trust
time.
is everything, I'd imagine, just like anything else.
And then again, developing kids. developing players, and just, do not discount the state of South Carolina. There's really good players in this state. There always have been. And a lot of times I think some coaches, kind of said, we're going somewhere else. You got to go somewhere else because, we always used to use a 5-hour radius, around Columbia. That's our recruiting area. Well, you go 5 hours away from Columbia, you're going to hit the Atlantic Ocean. Eventually, there aren't any players there. So then you got to push yourself up into North Carolina. You got to say North Carolina is like South Carolina. It's the same state.
Yeah.
You got to look at it that way. You can't. Look at the players that have come here from the state of North Carolina over the years that have been great players.
I know Pharaoh Cooper is one of your favorite. We talked about him before.
I recruited Pharaoh out of Havelock.
Yeah.
And in fact, there was a kid on that team that I had committed coming here. When I left, they backed off of him, and the Vickers kid, and he went to Kevin Vickers. He went to Tennessee and started 3 years.
Yeah, that name sounds very familiar.
Why they backed off him, I have no idea. But I left, and I don't know if it was out of spite or whatever.
Right.
But there's enough good players in that state that want to play in the SEC. And South Carolina is a great option for them. And it's a great, it's a heck of a dang, environment. If you can get a kid to come down here and go to a game in Williams-Brice Stadium, you got a chance to get him.
Right.
Because, the environment here, in my opinion, is as good as it gets.
Yeah. And, of course, Shane's got that advantage now with us getting past last year. And we saw it in the month of June. We talk recruiting, and I guess I had you on a couple months before that. But Shane Beamer in June, 12 commitments. I don't know if you were keeping an eye on it, but, have you ever heard of such a thing? 12 commits in a month. They were doing some work on the recruiting trail. They were killing it.
Working hard.
Yeah.
And I didn't exactly know it was 12 or whatever, but and the other part of it is now, did you make a good evaluation? Because, anybody go recruit a kid,
right.
But did you make a good evaluation? Now go develop the kid. But if you don't develop them, they're just, a can of corn.
Right. Where do you think the biggest mistake is made in recruiting? Is it more on the evaluation side, the development side? Where's the mistake made more often than not, you think?
Evaluation.
Yeah.
Reading all the internet bullshit.
Where a kid's ranked in the top 100 or 200 or 300 or 400.
I don't care what kid's ranked.
Right.
Who's ranking them?
Right.
A lot of times it's a bunch of high school guys that never played football. They're ranking a kid. Who's ranking these kids?
Right.
Now, if you tell me that there's a panel of coaches, college football coaches that have been around for a long time, they're ranking them, I'll buy into that. But for just to say, and then this thing of if a kid, I had somebody tell me this, he said, it's so unfair that every time we get a kid committed, he drops in points. What are these points?
Right.
Who gives a –
Well, my buddy, they nicknamed it the cock drop. Every time South Carolina gets it, you can ask anybody here, anytime we get a big-time commit, he'll fall in the rankings. Every time it seems like.
But who cares?
Well, fans care.
But who cares?
Fans care.
The bottom line is, are you winning on Saturday? And
yeah,
I don't know if you've ever followed the stock market, and I don't much, but I do a little bit. But the deal is to buy low, sell high.
Right.
To me, that's the guy that's doing a hell of a job, buy low, sell high. And so, Coach Spurrier now, he was the best at it.
Right.
He wanted kids to not be ranked high. He used to tell us, he said, we may give us one of them 5 stars. That's fine. He said, I don't want me and them 4 stars. He said, I want a bunch of them 3-star kids. So if you got a kid that everybody's ranking high, I said, do the best you can to get his ranking pulled down. He said, so we don't want all that stuff. And he was right.
Right.
Who cares?
Right.
It doesn't matter.
And so you would tell the fans, you have to trust Shane Beamer and that he is a master talent evaluator and a master talent developer. Trust your coach that he's pulling in the best guys for your program.
He's your head coach.
Right.
You hired him to do a job, let him do it. But don't flip out over what a kid's ranked, or all this. I'll give you one right here. And I signed Chris Culliver out of Garner, North Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
Cully was a 3-star recruit. And I knew, I mean, he was a very talented guy, played in the NFL for a while. But Cully, we were talking one day, and he said, man, I'd love to be one of them 4-star recruits. I said, do you really care about that crap? And he said, Coach, I'd love to just, I said, all right, no problem. So about a week, I called a couple of my recruiting guys. I said, I need him to be a 4-star recruit. They bumped him up to a 4-star recruit. And is that ridiculous or not? Then Kelly says, Coach, I just got moved to 4-star. And I went, well, you're welcome. And he said, I'd love to be one of them 5-star guys. I said, Kelly, you got to come to an end with this thing eventually. He said, Coach, I'd love to. And I knew, I'm trying to get him done.
Right.
So I got him bumped up to a 5-star.
Because I was thinking, wasn't he a 5-star prospect? Like, I thought he was.
Yeah. I got him bumped up to be a 5-star.
God.
And when he did, he came to me and he gave me a big hug. He said, Coach, I appreciate it. Thank you. That's all. He said, I'm coming to South Carolina. I said, I know you are. I said, well, why was that important to you? He said, I just want to walk around school and just be a 5-star for a while. But that's how stupid it is.
Right.
It really is. You look right now, there's some 5-stars at Clemson right now that aren't very good players or may not even play.
Right.
There's one from Florence, and then I don't know what's happened with that kid, but he was all everything, and he don't even play.
Right.
That's my point, is that all this, who's doing the ratings?
Yeah. If
it's a bunch of coaches that have, validity in what they say, that's different. But if you got just a bunch of dang jacklegs, as Spark used to say, a bunch of jacklegs that are making these decisions on all this recruiting stuff, he said, it don't matter, and it really doesn't.
So what Coach Lawing's telling everybody here is if you're that $9.99 you're spending a month on 24/7 or Rivals, you put that in the Big Cock Club, you get a lot better much more out of your investment. No, speaking on that, well, you talked about earlier, we'll move off of recruiting. I feel like we could just go on recruiting all day long because it's so fun to pick your brain about it. But you talked about something earlier and the letters you guys would get. And I'm curious, again, we're sitting here 10 days from kickoff, and the excitement's at a fever pitch. I feel like this is as excited as Gamecock fans have been in quite a while. It reminds me, and I think Kirk reposted the video, and people posted the first 2001 from the Spurrier era in 05, the UCF game, and people are comparing this summer and this preseason to that preseason. How did you handle fan expectations? Because I know you hear it. I know it doesn't bother you in the building. You're doing your job. You're doing your thing. But fan expectations are a real thing. And especially in today's day and age with social media, fans can be very, very loud with expectations. And that's what I've been trying to do, honestly, Coach, going into kickoff and Shane's first season is, like you said, you don't want to accept mediocrity, but you just want fans to understand that it's going to be a process. He needs time to build. He needs time to recruit and to keep, I think, realistic expectations are healthy early in his tenure. But from the coaching side, did you because your players are probably listening to it. How did you handle the expectations and all that?
Everywhere I was at for probably the last 20 years of my career, we had somebody in the athletic program that basically almost had a psychology degree and dealt with our players about the internet. Because if they had a game where they didn't perform as high, they would get crushed. And these kids would read it, and then, it affects their psyche.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, they play a decent game, and they think they were all this and that, and it would be on the internet. And, we've had basically a psychologist most of the places I've been where that dealt with the kids. They would tell us. I know at Florida State, we had a guy, he'd come tell me every day before practice, before my meetings, he'd say, now, this was said about one of your players, and it was very negative. You need to know about this today, because you're going to have to deal with it today in practice. He may not practice as well. Or this guy, right now, he's getting pumped up to be this or that. He thinks he's all this, and that's the damage that is done to these kids. But it's the kids' fault because they listen to it and they read it. But that information that's out there, that's the damage that gets done to these kids. And I've always said, since all this came about, in fact, I was in Augusta 20-some years ago, and I said, and you'd have thought I threw a dang bomb at him, but there was a wife of one of the guys out there. She said, "Do y'all this internet stuff? Is it good?" And I said, really, it does more harm than good. And she punched her husband. I said, I know right now where some of that's coming from. But, again, I go back to it. Anytime you can put information out there or question what somebody's doing, and you don't have to put your name on it, whatever, that's not good.
Right.
I mean, like I said, most of them, a guy told me, he said, a lot of these guys that are posting, they're either teenagers or high school kids, teenagers, or they're college students, or they're somebody that's not working.
Right.
Because they got too much damn time on their hands. And so, and I'm not sitting here bashing all that stuff, but I do know over the years, I've seen a lot of kids really get damaged because of, stuff that's said out there. And it's like Mike Gundy. He said it best. He said, if you want to criticize somebody, criticize me. I'm a man. Yeah. Don't criticize my players.
Right.
They're kids. They're doing the best they can most of the time.
For sure.
And so, and I always just look at, we're the ones that brought them there. If they don't play good, don't criticize the kid. Criticize us as coaches. We brought them there. We haven't developed the kid well enough.
For sure. Coach, before we talk about this year's defensive line, I feel like the people deserve this story. I've had you on the show, and we've talked about, of course, Jadavion Clowney and all those guys, and, I mean, that gang of pass rushers we have. But we talked specifically about the 2012 Clemson game, this game specifically. But this hit is what's remembered. But also, Jadavion Clowney still holds the record for Memorial Stadium for sacks in a game in that building with 4.5. And listening to you talk about pass rush and the way you position guys and you never would think there's that much strategy because, hey, we just think of playing Madden or NCAA and, hey, it's a cover 4 or cover 3 and we're just rushing the ends. But there is a science behind getting your best pass rushers to the quarterback, and you guys maybe no better night it was ever shown than that night in Clemson.
There was a guy that I met back in the late 80s named John Levra. He was an NFL coach, and he understood pass rush as well as anybody. And I got a chance to visit with him, and he showed me how to break pass rush protection down. And I started doing it from then on. And I did it the rest of my career. And I would always look for how, maybe where the center's turning, where the backs are setting, a lot of different things. It could be based on where the tight end is. But if you break film down enough, you'll find out there's always something. There's a message there somewhere every time. And so what I would do is that's what I do on Sunday. Every Sunday, I did nothing. I would do our film from the past game. We'd go in there with the head coach, and we'd look at the game. Then, boom, the rest of the day, I did nothing but pass rush protection or pass protection. And when I would finish breaking it down, I felt comfortable that I had them, and I'd leave go home.
How many hours we talking of film you'd watch on to get the idea of or pick up those cues, if you will?
Probably, and I always had good GAs, and I would teach them how to do it. And so they would give me a head start with some of the stuff on paper, but I do everything by hand. So I didn't do anything by computer or whatever. I did everything by hand and putting tick here, tick there, so it took a long time, but I used to get started about 2:00 in the afternoon on Sunday, and I'd get through maybe 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. Sometimes it was later. Sometimes it might be a little bit earlier, but I wanted to understand the whole picture that I was seeing. And that year with Clemson, I knew where their center was turning based on our front. And I knew they were taking Clowney and making him, I used to call it our spinner. I used to use Melvin Ingram in that position a lot too. So I knew they were going to do it to Clowney. So I just took Clowney. I said, okay, everything I would ask you to do in pass rush, we're going to do the opposite. And so their center would set to Clowney, and I was bringing a guy away from him and just knocking the crap out of him, like a pick. And then Clowney would get engaged the center, and boom, he'd wrap right around.
Right.
Then I'd take him on the edge, do the same thing with the tackle. And bottom line, he ended up 4.5 sacks that night. That's a hell of a game.
Yeah.
And so, you have to ID the protection. That's what I call it, ID and the protection. There aren't many people that understand that. I've had Chris Rump came and sat down with me for a couple hours trying to understand.
Great Gamecock, Chris Rump. Yeah,
he was there when I was there.
Yeah,
when I first was coaching here, And finally, after a while, he said, Coach said, that's just too much time. I said, well, do you want to get there or not? You know, you got to make a decision. And so, anyway, I've tried to teach guys, and there's 2 or 3 guys that I've taught over the years that really, really understood it, and they've all had really, or having really good careers right now.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
It is very time consuming. But again, I call it ID, pass rush, or pass protection ID, you know, and I've spoken to a lot of clinics about it, and I try to make it as simple as I can so high school coaches can understand it. And some of them, you know, have had success using it, but it just takes a lot of time. And a lot of people aren't willing, you know, to dedicate that much time to trying to break something down like that.
And I was going to say, not everybody has a Jadavion Clowney. So how much different is it in game planning when, you know, we'll say you have a solid D-line, but you don't really have that one guy? Because I'd have to imagine it was so interesting going week to week to week. I mean, we all knew these offenses are game planning around 7. They're game planning around him.
And I knew that. But, I mean, when I was at Michigan State, I mean, we had 57 sacks. We broke the school record.
57 in a season. Yeah. 57 sacks.
When I was at Florida State, we had 51 and led the country in sacks.
You guys had what here? 40?
46. That was
40, okay.
That was the SEC, led the SEC.
Yeah.
But, I mean, so I've always had Clowney. We've done the same kind of thing.
Okay.
So, you know, you know, but when you got somebody like Clowney, a special guy like that, you got to use him now. If you don't, you're wasting him.
Yeah.
I call that's part of player development right there.
Yeah.
You know, don't waste the guy's talent. And JD always bought into it. He loved getting to the quarterback. I always told me, he said, Coach, man, I love it. If you can help me get there, I love getting there. I said, I know you do. and he worked hard at it.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes in as far as pass rush techniques. There's a lot of techniques that I teach that are related to wrestling. You know, I would go to the clinics. And instead
I know you were telling me about like pain points and like where you're putting your elbow and everything.
There's a thing called an arm drag where, you know, a rip position. A lot of people get in rip positions, they don't know what to do with it.
Right.
If you will pull on that tricep, if the guy doesn't let you go, you separate his shoulder. And so that's one of my main things I would teach. But the bottom line is I would go listen to wrestling coaches. The wrestling coach at Ohio State one year, I got some good stuff from him. But when I go to clinics, those are the guys I go listen to because they were – you tell me what sport there is that's better at engagement and disengagement than a wrestling coach. They're the best. And so I said, they're the best. I want to go learn and find out and see how I can transfer this over to football.
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
Yeah. Now, I know I'm keeping you up here a while, Coach. There's so many good stories.
My wife's out there riding around. She's shopping. All you're doing right now is save me on my MasterCard.
That's it. No,
I'm going to call her when we're through.
Hey, well, then I don't feel bad at all.
She's probably 10 miles from me right now, getting as far away as she can so she can spend whatever she can spend.
Yeah. you talked about what you look for in recruiting, and the story, though, that jumps out to me is the one you told about, what was it, Chaz Sutton, when he came, and he was kind of a mild-mannered, or was it somebody else? Mild-mannered kid, and you wanted to – Devin Taylor, okay. And we're talking a massive human being. This is I mean, we watched him on the field. It's a monster. But
Devin was 6'7", 215 pounds coming out of high school. He ended up playing at like 265, 270. And he was really lean, but Devin was so mild-mannered. And I use the word demeanor. That's really big for me whenever I evaluate kids. What is their demeanor like? Because you can look like a football player, but if you don't have the right demeanor, you're not going to play like one. You know, I mean, that's like going to a bar fight and all of a sudden you look around behind you and where's my buddy at, you know? He's supposed to be helping me, but he's not helping me. But anyway, Devin was so mild-mannered. And in fact, Shane was recruiting, Shane Beamer. And I told Shane, I said, I need him in camp for one session. And his mama, Sylvia, was the sweetest lady there is. And so anyway, he came to camp. We got out there on the field. We got through the morning session. And I said, Devin, come on out here. This is you and me. And Sylvia was there too. We were in the stadium. And I put my hands on Devin like a pass protector. I said, Devin, I want you to give me your best pass rush move. And I said, whatever it is, your best pass rush move. Well, I hauled off and I punched him right in the chest as hard as I could. And when I did, he attacked me. eyes went red. I mean, he attacked me, and Sylvia's over there going, oh. And when we got through, I mean, he about beat the hell out of me. But when we got through, I looked at Sylvia. I said, he's got a scholarship, South Carolina. I said, that's all I need to see.
Right.
I said, I didn't question his athleticism. I just didn't know what kind of kid he was. That's all I need to see. He's fine. And he was all SEC as a sophomore. Had a heck of a career.
Yeah, dude, he was incredible. Everybody thinks of Clowney, but those other guys on the defensive line, including
you put those on separate ends.
Yeah.
You're talking about 6'7", 6'7", 6'8" on both ends. Travion Robertson, 6'5" inside. Lottie Ajibo, Cliff Matthews, and it goes on and on and on. You know, Chaz Sutton. I mean, there was tons of them.
Aldrich Fordham, another guy.
Aldrich Fordham was you talk about an evaluation now.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody wanted Aldrich. He's from down there in Timberland. He's 6'2", 6'2.5", you know, about 260 pounds. But what great hips as far as being able to attack blocks. I loved Aldrich. He's one of my favorite players, and, you know, was a heck of a player for the Gamecocks. Well, we made a hell of an evaluation, and we developed the kid. And I'm not, you know, patting us on the back when I say it, but, I mean, we did. That's the bottom line. I mean, proof's in the pudding.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Now, you talked about Beamer while you were at South Carolina. I'm curious. I'm sure everybody's curious to hear. What was Coach Beamer like? You worked with him, obviously, you know, every single year he was here. And, of course, when you were here, he was just a young buck, just coaching special teams. But he had a major hand in recruiting a lot of those great players.
He did, and he was in charge of it, and which means, you know, I mean, the administrative part. He did a lot of that, and Shane was really learning back then. And I remember when he got there, in fact, you talk about pass ID protection. He had been at Mississippi State. We had beat them with 12-0, 16-0, whatever.
Yeah, you know, 2006 game. Yeah.
And I told him when he got there, I said, here's what we're going to do pass rush-wise. And I said, and those outside backers are going to be a part of it. He said, what are you talking about? I said, you know, based on where that center is or where that back is, then I know where your center's turning. He said, get out of here. I said, yeah. I said, like y'all at Mississippi State last year, I had y'all dialed in. That's why we shut you out. He said, what do you mean? I said, I knew wherever the back was that your center was working the opposite way. And he got to thinking about it because he coached the backs.
Yeah.
And he looked at me, he said, you know what? You're right. I said, y'all were doing it. I said, I figured that out on that Sunday. And I said, that's why y'all couldn't do anything in the passing game.
Yeah.
I said, we were all over you. But he was that point in time, he was learning.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I don't know if Coach Beamer would like that story or not.
No, he knows, because I never tell it to him.
Yeah.
But he was learning everything that was going on.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, he was really good at, you know, trying to be a good student of the game. And, I mean, he was there in the same meeting room with Ellis Johnson, experienced coach, Ron Cooper, experienced coach, myself, experienced coach. So, I mean, he knew, you know, if I'll just listen, I'm going to learn a lot of football. And he did. And that's my hat's off to him. And that's why I think he's going to be such a really good coach, you know, at the South Carolina head coach, because Shane knows he doesn't know everything. He knows he's humble. He knows there's plenty of things out there to learn. And that's why I think, I mean, he's going to do a great job here. I mean, because he's good with kids. I mean, that's I've said I've listened to him on television a couple times. I mean, he is really good.
Yeah.
And it's just the people here just got to. Nobody wants to be patient. I understand that. Like I say, you don't want to accept mediocrity, but you've got to be realistic to understand where he's at.
Yeah.
I mean, the hand that he's been handed, I don't know, because I haven't been around long enough to know everything. I went out last spring and watched them, and they've got some good players in positions, but you're not talking about. I mean, it's, you know, go look at all the SEC team right now. I mean, they're one first teamer.
Yeah. So 4 total. You had 1 first teamer. I actually mentioned on the show today. I mean, it's like you want to get to where Georgia is. They had 11 guys on that team. So I mean,
that's what you got to get to.
You know,
and that's where we were.
Bama had 15. So I mean, it's, you know,
and that's where we were. You know, when I left here. Yeah. You know, when we were here with Coach Spurrier, that's what we had. Yeah. And that's why we won all those ball games.
Yeah, for sure. Coach, before we get you out here again, we're talking D-line. You were out there this past spring. It's ironic, again, where you're up here and the Gamecocks defensive line, I would say this season's probably the strength of the football team. Certainly it's the strength of the defense. And, I feel like as you move back on this defense that, back on the levels, if you will, then to linebacker in the secondary, the questions start to really pop up, especially in that secondary. But from what you've seen from the defensive line, obviously J.J. Nagbari is a guy who I've seen some first-round projections, definitely at least second round. Jordan Birch, I know we talked about a lot. Alex Huntley, Tonka Hemingway, Jabari Ellis. The list just goes on and on and on with these guys, and you feel like that D-line should be a strength. Guys you've seen on that D-line that you like their game overall and what you'd expect from that group.
So I went out in the spring and watched them, and there's some talent there. There's some guys that are going to continue to develop big time. The one that I'm most familiar with is Zach Pickens.
Yeah, Pickens, yep.
Because Zach was coming to Florida State. That was a done deal. He'll tell you tomorrow. This is where, he said, Coach, had you still been there? I said, that's where I was coming.
Yeah.
So I know. He and his mom came down and visited us in Tallahassee. And I said, here's going to be the thing, tell the tape. If you come to Tallahassee and visit and nobody from the internet finds out about it, then I know you're being straight up and you're coming. None of you guys found out about it. Nobody ever knew he came down there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he told me, he said, Coach, that's where I said, I felt he was going to be an outstanding player.
Yeah.
The other kids I watched in spring, the Birch kid, I think, has got tremendous talent.
Yeah.
He's just got
I've heard he's I got a buddy that works at Georgia, and he's told me, Chris, if he's not a first rounder, y'all messed up. Like, he's got that type of upside.
right. It's called development.
Right. Called development, yes.
You got to develop kids.
Yeah.
And you got to get it. You got to get it out of them, whether it's ability, whether it's that demeanor. Again, you can't coach a football player like you coach a piano player. I learned that a long time ago. You got to coach football players with, if you coach defensive linemen with your thumb stuck up your ass, that's how they're going to play on them Saturday.
Right.
You got to be all over. That's just the bottom line. That's how you coach those guys. And there's nothing nice about it. And there's a lot of coaches out there. I know when I left here, I think that's what happened to JD. He got coached really nice.
At the NFL level, you're saying?
No, I'm talking about when I left there.
Oh, okay.
When DK, because I know DK going to yell at the kid. And so, but that's what's
right.
And I'm not bashing. That's just the way it is.
Right.
And you can't coach kids like that. You got to coach them hard. And that's what the good players, they want to be coached hard. And the guy they got now, the line coach, I've met him. He's a great guy. I think he'll do an outstanding job. But he just got to remember, you just got to keep coaching them kids hard. You can't be nice to those kids up front on defense. Same ones on offense. You can't be nice to them. When you're coaching a lineman, you got to understand, football is the only sport in the world where the object is not to get the ball, but to get the man that's got the ball. And that's what makes it different.
Right.
And unless you have that type of attitude, unless you've been trained to react like that, then you can't excel in this game.
Yeah. For sure. Coach, this has been an honor. This has been a pleasure. I'm fired up. I'm ready to run through a brick wall right now. I appreciate you taking the time. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. And like I said, just 10 days away from kickoff now. I know we're all excited. Not just the defensive line, but obviously Shane Beamer, Coach Beamer in his first season. And, again, patience, obviously, let Shane Beamer build in recruiting. But I think if we do that, we're all going to be very, very happy with the end result. So appreciate you taking the time, Coach.
Thanks.
Always a pleasure. Hope you enjoy the Swearinger piece. Put this in the man cave, obviously.
You've never seen my man cave?
I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen it. Need to make
way
way to the lake.
It's 40 years worth of stuff, pictures and all that. That one right there is going right in it tonight.
I love it. Coach Lowing. Give it up for Coach Brad Lowing. That was incredible. Appreciate you, Coach. Thank you. Hey, you can stick around if you want. You don't have to go shopping with the wife if you don't want to. It's whatever. I don't mind. We're just going to chill, take some questions, whatever it might be. That was incredible. I don't know how you follow that up for the last 45 minutes or so. Always a phenomenal time, Coach. Seriously, thank you. Thank you so much.
And I love anytime it involves the Gamecocks, I'm all for doing it. And I love this program.
Yeah.
I love Columbia, whole area through here. And so we felt like we had a home run when we finally moved here 30-some years ago. So.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Coach Brad Lowing.
Got a question.
Go ahead.
What do you think about, I know you haven't had to deal with this in the past, but now that players have the ability players that make more money than the players that don't? Do you think the players that don't are going to start resenting the players that make a lot of money that are like, oh, look how much money I made this team from my jerseys and everything? Do you think there's going to be a problem?
The question was about because I haven't had to deal with players that are getting paid.
The NIL, yeah.
That's completely a falsehood. Okay, I've had to deal with players getting paid my whole career.
There you go. Yeah. There it is. Yeah.
I'll promise you
Yeah.
that. And in fact, I used to have a little saying. I said, sometimes you gotta go see a man about a man. And,
Oh, God.
So yeah, I've had to deal with that for a long. Now, was it legal? No, but I've had to deal with it. Your question is really valid because there can be jealousies that pop up from there, and so that's a different deal. That's a different deal, but I don't know how that's going to work because I've thought about it a little bit, but yeah, I'm almost glad they're doing it now because I mean, you talk about stressed. You go into a home, and then the kids, we're getting this, we're getting that, and you're going, oh my God, and here I am, and I got to get this player. How am I going to get him? And so, if you want to read something it's a pretty good read. When I was at Michigan State, I got involved in a deal in Memphis, Tennessee, with Albert Means. He was the number one player in the country. He was a 260-pound linebacker who was going to be a defensive end. And he ended up going to Alabama. He ended up costing a couple coaches at Alabama their jobs. But his high school coach was selling him. And I wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't get into it. In fact, he offered me the deal, and I said, is anybody in on this thing? And he said, yeah, there are. I said, who? He said, well, if you don't get in it, he said, you'll find out on National Signing Day. Well, I didn't. Well, that coach never gave all the money he got to the kid. And it was at Tresvant High School. The coach's name was Lynn Lane. But he never gave all the money to the kid and his mom. So they got pissed, turned him in to the police because, I mean, you're talking about tax evasion, all kinds of stuff. And so the kid, I mean, they were all upset about it because of what I'd heard with the conversation that got out there. I got a letter from, I never forget, Suzanne Nash from the FBI called me while I was in East Lansing. She said, we need you to come to Memphis and testify to the grand jury. And I did. And then I went to the University of North Carolina. And when all that came out in the media, I had to explain to the chancellor of North Carolina why I was speaking to the damn grand jury. And because I'd done nothing. I was a witness. I'd done nothing. And then whenever they prosecuted him, the high school coach, I had to go back to the trial, and all of a sudden he pled out guilty, and it's done. Then there's a guy named Logan Young. I'm throwing some names out there. If you'll Google them up, this is a damn hell of a story now. But Logan Young, his dad was Bear Bryant's best friend. He bought all them kids in Memphis. And Logan was the one that was anteing up all the money. Well, Logan ended up, he was guilty, whatever they got all that stuff. So I go speak at his trial. And I was what they call a rebuttal witness, which means I can just say yes or no. That's it. And if anybody here is an attorney, you might be an attorney. You know what I'm talking about. And so they said, did this happen? This happened? Yes. So I walked out of the courtroom, and somebody asked me, said, what was it like? I said, y'all remember Perry Mason? I said, that's what it was like, except it was in color instead of black and white. All you older guys, y'all remember Perry Mason? We used to watch as kids. And I point over at some of you guys, I know y'all remember. But so bottom line is, all this happens, he gets declared guilty. Well, they're getting ready to sentence him, Logan, in the summer. Well, when they got ready to sentence him, all of a sudden Logan got murdered. And one day he was murdered, and the next day he had fallen down the stairs and cut himself and bled to death. So he went from being murdered to bled to death, which means that somebody else was involved in this deal. Because he was getting ready to then, turn evidence, to save his own ass. Well, I started getting these phone calls for 2 or 3 years, these hang-up calls, and I got them for a long time. And I started putting them little coins on them on top of my car and marking my tires and stuff. I mean, it scared the hell out of me. But if you want a heck of a story, just read the thing about Albert Means and Logan Young. I was involved in that and by total accident. Did nothing wrong. So, and that was the SEC can get kind of nasty from time to time. I promise you. So it's just.
Coach, what percentage of kids in a recruiting class is there a deal being cut for, you think? Out of all, if there's 25 signed, what?
You talking about the way it used to be?
Sure.
I mean,
sure.
Nowadays there's a deal cut all the time because of the new rules.
True. Yeah. I mean, the game's changed with NIL, but so back in the old days, I don't want to say that, but
probably,
back in the day.
I'd say probably half.
Wow. That's a lot.
I mean, that's just the way
that's
it
a
was.
lot.
That's just the way it was. That's why I ain't got no hair left, okay?
Woo.
I mean, that's just the way it was.
A couple Hollingsworth checks were cut back in the day. That's what I'm hearing.
I mean, I tell people.
A couple Hollingsworth checks.
I mean, back it was the Wild West back then. That's what it was.
Yeah.
It was the Wild West. And there's ways back then you could give a kid a car. That was legal. All you had to do was have one of his parents become a car dealer and tell him to go up here to the state auction, go buy him a couple cars at a discount rate because if somebody worked at the state auction, sold him a couple, $25,000 cars for about $100 a piece. It's legal. And he sets them out front of his house. Kid drives one, mom drives one, he drives one, maybe granddad drives a car. Nothing wrong with that. And they're going to sell these cars to somebody to buy them, but nobody ever comes by and offers enough money to buy one. And they got cars, and then all of a sudden you look around and kid graduates, he's gone. All of a sudden the cars disappear. It's just it's the way it was. It's just the way it was.
You ought to write a book, Coach. I'd read it. So incredible stuff. Again, Coach Brad Lawing. Give him a round of applause. Incredible. This is incredible. Incredible. Always a legendary conversation.
And I can only say this stuff because I'm retired.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That's why I asked. I was like, you're out of the game, so it's all good. You can look back and sort of laugh on it.
I would be an AD's worst nightmare.
Or maybe we need you on staff so you can it's like you hire a computer hacker to stop the hackers. Like So we want to dance around anything. We'll have Coach Brad Long do it. So, Coach, again, appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for taking the time. Again, Coach Brad Long. Yeah. All right. Cool. Yeah. Awesome stuff. So, like I said, I think Kirk said, you want me to show you how big of a Gamecock fan I am? Let me write a check real quick. Here we go. How much do you need?
Oh, was this on the radio?
No.
Just here?
Yeah.
I got you. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I was asking.
Coach, I put it out everywhere, man. Everywhere. I don't think you said anything too incriminating. I think we're fine.
It don't matter if I do.
Yeah, exactly. You're retired. And he's not coming back into the game. So happily retired on Lake Murray. So